How to meet customer expectations in the age of omni-channel fulfillment is the topic of my conversation today with Justin Cramer, co-founder of ProShip. Justin, welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Let's start out with that question, the big question. How indeed do you meet customer shipping expectations in today's omni-channel world?
Well, there's not just one thing. It really is getting a lot of systems put together properly. Looking all the way from your e-commerce suite where you're advertising that information to your customers, all the way down to whether it's stores, warehouses, or partners, getting the inventory from them and communicating that back to something like an OMS, which can then make a great selection as to where to source that from.
OMS, Order Management System. Go ahead.
So order management system, yeah. And then once the order management system is determined where we're going to source it from, using intelligent software to actually execute that sourcing, whether it's from a store, whether it's from a traditional warehouse or DC, or whether it's from your partners or 3PL. Okay? And of course, let's not forget manufacturers. By using all of those different inventory sources, we can often shorten that last leg to the customer, and then we can make very intelligent, more cost-effective choices as to what shipping mode we use to make that last mile delivery. So it really is, from one end to the other, a lot of components that if you can align them together, it can really, really improve that customer experience and bring them back to you time and again.
Good point that no single piece of technology is going to solve all of your issues, but what are some of the unique technology implementations that are at play here in order to address some of these concerns? Give me some examples.
Well, at the last mile, which is where we focus, a lot of it is about checking all the services that are available to you very quickly in relation to the customer expectation. Because it's going to be very different if somebody is expecting a 2-day delivery. They're expecting a lower cost, non-urgent shipment than if they're expecting something same day. But from an operational standpoint, you can't specialize your personnel one to the other. So where the specialization needs to come in is in the software. So whether this package that I just pulled across in front of me needs to be delivered in 2 hours, I should handle it no differently than the next package that gets pulled across that can be delivered in a couple of days, okay? So by moving all that specialization into software, your operators, the people who are using that software, can focus on other things that enhance the customer experience. The packaging, making sure we get things in the right box so we're not on Twitter being shown with 10 times as much volume, and these things just don't play out well. That's the things that those operators should be looking at, not, well, is Deliv available in my area? Is this something I should use a postal last mile for? I don't even know the difference between DHL and FedEx, right? They shouldn't be worried about those things. They should be focusing on the rest of the presentation for that end consumer.
Okay, so the speed of delivery might change, what's in the package might change, the mode of delivery might change, but one thing that doesn't change is the need to keep the customer apprised of where the package is at any given time.
Right.
How is that being done today?
Well, and now we're rolling right back up into that enterprise software stack. Number one, we want to make sure that as soon as that parcel is labeled, that the enterprise software stack is informed of it, right? The carriers, of course, when they come to pick it up, they're going to start sending back tracking information to the enterprise software stack, but often there's that gap. There's a gap between when we first label that shipment and the first time a carrier scans it. And what we're seeing a lot of our customers looking at right now is monitoring that gap, especially during peak seasons, because if especially from a warehouse, you could be putting out 4 or 5 trailers a day. One of those trailers gets set to the side, and all of a sudden you see trailers that were filled after that getting scanned. That's a time where a warehouse manager may call up a carrier and go, hey, did you leave this trailer in the back of the yard? Because it has happened to our customers multiple times. So tracking that gap between label application and that first scan is something that we're seeing a lot more of in order to, where retailers are owning more of that relationship, such that they can better inform their customers.
A lot of what we've been talking about so far is customer facing. The idea is to increase the customer experience. But meanwhile, at the same time, you've got to be doing something to reduce and control your operational costs. So how is that being done at the same time you're providing this fantastic service and yet trying to keep your costs down or even cut them?
That's a good question, and there's many things that are being looked at. One is doing all that cost evaluation with powerful software that can do it real time. Okay, so because if you're just comparing 3 or 4 service levels, that might not work. If you're comparing 12 service levels, you might find the exact fit that comes to those intersections of cost, speed, and expectation of the customer. Okay. Additionally, I can't emphasize enough about the sourcing piece of it. The requirement to find that inventory source that balances the cost of goods sold with the actual cost of the transaction, the cost of the transportation portion of that transaction. And this is where we've seen, especially in the last 24 months, a lot of our customers start shifting towards, if it makes sense, if they have a manufacturer, let's say in Southern California, a lot of their Southern California products are being shipped directly from that manufacturer, even though the cost of goods sold for that manufacturer is higher, because the transaction cost, the shipment leg is so much cheaper. That's what makes sense. And this is where I brought it all, I talked earlier that a lot of this hub goes around an order management system or an OMS. Okay, the OMS's job, when it's in that e-commerce cart or when it's being transferred by some batch file or something like that, is to work with other things like shipping software to determine what is the lowest cost of that total transaction. And that inventory sourcing is a huge piece of it, and then being efficient once you've sourced that inventory to use the appropriate carrier service levels, not to provide too great of a service level when a lower cost service level will meet and exceed your customer's expectation. It's the combination of all of those different things that helps to at least maintain your logistics costs at a low rate. And if it's done really well, if you've got a really extensive network, you can reduce those overall costs.
Give me an example or two of a company that is successfully pursuing an omni-channel shipping approach. A retailer.
Probably my favorite example would be QVC, part of the Curate group. As you know, they bring in small stocks of items, or small to our numbers, right? 10, 20,000, 100,000 at a time. But they seriously leverage every vendor that they have. They leverage multiple warehouses across the country, and they actually check multiple times a day as stock levels rise and increase in various areas, as labor moves around within their components, and as their vendors give them feedback as to how they may want to shift fulfillment internally and externally in order to find that balance of cost versus customer expectation. Okay, just to give you an example, I'm aware they have more than 1,000 vendors that they leverage for the purpose, right? Along with their own many warehouses across the country. So to me, that's a great example of them dynamically moving around where they're going to source those orders from, not just because it meets customers' expectation, not just because it helps for the logistics costs, but because the combination of the entire process to their customer.
So a real world example of how this omni-channel approach can actually work. It's great to hear. Justin, thank you so much for being with us and telling us a little bit about the challenges of the omni-channel world and how they can be met. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with Justin Cramer of ProShip. Thank you very much for watching.